Regular board meeting of the Waterloo Community School District Board of Education. I'd like to call our meeting to order, please, and we'll begin this evening with a moment of silence. And now will you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And tonight, Sue Flynn is going to read our mission statement.
The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community.
Thank you, Sue. And the first item on our agenda tonight is a board celebration for Teacher Appreciation Week. This is Exhibit A in our handout. And I'm going to turn it over to our board secretary, Pam Arndorfer. Okay. Thanks.
Get that on the, do you want to maybe second
Yep.
first?
So the motion is that the Board of Education proclaim May 4th through the 8th, 2015 as Teacher Appreciation Week in Waterloo.
And I'll second.
Sue. And second, Mike. Thank you. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Arndorfer.
Okay. This is something that we do on a yearly basis. We have the Teacher Appreciation Week, and what we do to celebrate that is we donate a book to each of the school libraries. So, or media centers, I guess would be the proper thing to call them. So this year, our elementary media centers are getting a book that's called The Adventures of Beagle, the Unimaginary Friend. This is a Caldecott Medal winner. I had to say one afternoon I read it in my office upstairs. It's a really super cute little book. So that's the one that the elementaries, you want to pass them around and everybody can take a look at them. Our middle school libraries are going to get a book called The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. This is a Newbery Medal winner. I also have a friend who works in the library downtown, and she just said that this has been like really checked out a lot from the library. It's a very good book. If your kid likes rap, I think they would enjoy this book. So The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. And then the one for the high school libraries is called Dead Wake, The Last Crossing of the Lusitania. This was suggested to me by Miss Willis, who is the media center specialist out at West High. So she had suggested this book for the high school libraries. So we will be donating a book to each of those, our schools, this week. And then in addition, this fall we will be honoring some of our staff and groups at that time. So there we go.
And the books are placed in each library for
Yes,
checkout, correct?
correct.
So they're not part of a curriculum or anything?
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. You want to pass those around and look at them?
Thank you. Well, now we've come to the time for information. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. We got to vote on accepting those great books. Okay. All those in favor of accepting the books for Teacher Appreciation Week, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thanks, Pam. Now it's time for information from individuals and delegations. At this time, if there's anyone here who would like to address the board, we ask you to come forward and state your name and address. I don't have that whole thing, so. The little green light should go on. There's a little button.
Oh,
there you
push
go.
that. There we go. Okay. My name is Kevin Roberts, and I live on 1926 City View Street. In my neighborhood, I see the students that I often teach, whether at the park, basketball court, walking to and from a friend's house on the weekend. I've learned that the world that these students occupy is vibrant and rich. Their daily interactions and the exposure is beautiful and complex, and they are experiencing and capable of wrestling with so much more than we often give them credit for. On March 13th, a decision was made by this district by Dr. Lee, Director of Curriculum, and Dr. Linneman in regards to what should be allowed in these middle schools' worlds and what they're capable of wrestling with. An email was sent pulling the absolute true diary of a part-time Indian by Sherman Alexie from middle school classrooms across the district. The issue I have, and so many of my colleagues, along with the American Library Association, National Coalition Against Censorship, and the National Council of Teachers of English have with this decision is that it was made without following the district policy for review. The district policy for review lays out a process that is least restrictive, allowing a challenge to occur and still leaving the book in the classroom if necessary. It's transparent, calls for public statements for reasoning, and is open for dialogue among a variety of professionals and community members who have read the materials in their entirety. The latest reason given by Dr. Linneman on April 13th, the last board meeting, was for not following this policy was an explanation of the 2 levels of scrutiny for the use and removal of materials in the district. To get to this reasoning, district administration has followed a rocky and shifting road of logic. In the best case scenario, the 2-level reason for not forming a review committee was the only and original excuse by the district from the beginning, and that this novel was not removed as an independent reaction to a parent complaint, and that the decision makers in our district carefully considered issues of censorship, considered implications towards student and teachers in the democratic society, and made a best decision after careful consideration of the policy. And in the process of defending that decision, only due to poor communication, they muddled and confused their explanation for that reasoning. The worst case scenario is that Dr. Lee and Dr. Lindemann made an immediate decision in response to an out-of-context text message picture of material from the book, decided immediately that the materials were entirely inappropriate, required all materials removed from the middle school, and upon being challenged, searched for defense after defense, changing rationale in order to retroactively apply reason to a reaction. A book was removed from all middle school classrooms following a single parent complaint. Dr. Lee originally stated that the novel was inappropriate for that age. When asked why a review was not followed, she stated that there was no need for a formal review because there was no formal challenge. Dr. Linneman echoed the sentiment, and added that it was inarguably inappropriate and agreed with the parent, and there was no need to file a complaint. In essence, a review was formed, immediately and inarguably by Dr. Lee and Dr. Linneman, and in this way removed literature from all the middle school without a transparent and professional dialogue that our policy lays out. At this point, the Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier article that covered this issue ended. The reason for Dr. Linneman's refusal to form a review policy, and several of the school board members claimed that for this reason not covering.
Mr. Roberts, excuse me, I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we do limit our comments to 3 minutes, and
Okay.
I neglected to say that, so I apologize doubly. I would like you to give you the courtesy to wrap up what you're going to say.
I've got some support. Can they cede their time to me?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great. And
So,
the other thing,
would anyone do
I
that?
was going to say, they can come up and speak and start again.
If they just want to cede their 3 minutes to me, would that be acceptable? No, that's not acceptable.
No, it's not acceptable. I'm sorry, I thought you meant that they would continue speaking, but I wanted to give you the opportunity.
Sure. How much time do I have?
3 minutes, but I'd like you to wrap up your comments, but what I'm telling you is that you have the ability to submit these to us, and we will happily take them. Your writing, you may give those to us too, so that we all have a copy of them, even if you can't finish them.
Excellent. Thank you. For this reason, the Waterloo Courier, and so many of you said that they misrepresented and misled the public. The reason for a review not to be followed was a parenthetical statement that by our own admission is flawed and vague. I ask that this school board follows their own policy, forms a review, and by doing so, sets a precedent for our students of the seriousness of our profession and the seriousness of the educational community by following reason with a well-informed reaction rather than following a reaction with shifting reason. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I apologize that I didn't state that at the beginning, but I would welcome those comments, all of them.
My name is Denny McCabe, 1128 Wren Road, Waterloo. It's nice to see so many familiar faces on the board. I'm a retired Waterloo teacher and spent most of my years at Hoover Middle School, where I understand this whole issue started. Anyway, I'm here to support Mr. Kevin Roberts. I had not met him before tonight, but I want him to know that I support his stance regarding this wonderful book. During my many years with the Waterloo Schools, I experienced many initiatives designed to encourage students to read. Of course, the obvious irony is that controversies such as these achieve that outcome as successfully, if not more so, than more formal efforts. What middle school student is not attracted to forbidden fruit? This former middle school teacher was. When I became aware of the debate surrounding this book, I immediately ordered it and read it. And I'd like to join you in donating books, because I've got one that I plan to donate my copy to the Hoover Library. I thank Mr. Roberts and the conversation his teaching inspired for making me aware of this book. As a former American history teacher and sometime reading teacher, I found this book to be absolutely developmentally appropriate, especially if taught as a unit under the guidance of a professional educator. Middle school education, like any other, should be about providing more information, not less, and should always be about opening minds, not closing them. In my opinion, the themes presented in this novel do an excellent job of meeting literary and historical standards. They far outweigh any discomfort caused by language and sexual content. Anyone who has spent time around middle school kids or remembers those awkward early adolescent years knows that Junior, the narrator of this book, was voicing very real concerns of kids his age. I believe that too often teachers are not regarded as educated professionals capable of making informed judgments. Few professions are subject to such scrutiny. I also believe that Mr. Roberts' willingness to get up and stand up for students' needs in his profession is to be commended. What more could students want from their teacher than to witness him make this stand?
Anything further?
I'm Melissa Lynch. I live at 530 King Bard Boulevard in Waterloo. I am the secretary at Emmanuel Lutheran Church and Preschool, previously at the corner of Franklin and Highway 63. In 2012, we purchased ground on Oster Parkway in Cedar Falls to build a new church and preschool, which is currently under construction with completion slated for next spring. We are currently worshiping and operating our 3-year-old and 4-year-old programs from our temporary location on South Hackett in Waterloo. For the past 6 years, we've been fortunate to provide a state-funded 4-year-old preschool program through the State of Iowa Voluntary Preschool Grant that's administered through the Waterloo Schools. When we purchased our property in the Pinnacle Prairie development, we believed that the location was within the Waterloo school boundaries, and this was important to us when we chose our property because we wanted to be able to continue to provide that state-funded program. In yesterday's paper, I saw an article that stated that Cedar Falls and Waterloo would be reviewing the boundaries in the Pinnacle Prairie area this week. It is our understanding that Cedar Falls does not operate a state-funded preschool program. And I'm here tonight to ask you to consider allowing the church property on Oster Parkway to remain in the Waterloo School District so that we can continue to offer families this option. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Then we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our consent agenda, and it's rather lengthy this evening, so bear with me. I'm going to go through all of our options here. We have the minutes of the April 13th, 2015 regular board meeting. We have personnel appointments and adjustments, bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings, a grant from Green Scene Trees for Orange Elementary, donation from the Waterloo Exchange Club to East High School, the donation from R.J. McElroy Trust, a donation from the R.J. McElroy Trust to the West High Culinary Program, a cooperative sponsorship agreement with athletics, a cooperative sponsorship agreement with music, and the selection of Medicaid contracted services. And these run from item Exhibits B through Exhibits K. Are there any items that board members would like to see pulled from the consent agenda?
Item C as in cat and F as in farm.
Item C and item F. Okay?
And I'd ask that item D, the bills due and payable, be removed because I'll abstain from voting on that.
Okay. Anything further? All right.
Well, I'm sorry, item K. as
Item
in
K.
kitten.
K is in kitten. Wow, we got cats and kittens up here. Look out. All right. Excellent. So at this point, I have items C, D, F, and K pulled. Is that correct? Anything further? All those in favor then of approving the consent agenda as read with items B, E, G, H, I, and J, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. I need to get all of those items on I need a motion to get all of those items first. So
Also move.
thank you, Mike. And thanks. Okay. Then all of those items, everybody's voted aye. So, all right. So then let's move on to item C, which is on page 4, personnel adjustments. And the recommended motion is the Board of Education approve the personnel items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And discussion?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Andrea. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. It looks like we have 7 teachers retiring this year?
Yes.
Okay, and will those positions be filled or,
Some of those positions will not be filled.
okay,
The last time you met as a board, we talked about the possibility of reduction in force as a result of our unknown financial situation. At this point, we're pretty happy to report that we won't have to deliver as many termination or layoff notices as we had initially expected. Our hope is that we can address some of these issues through attrition, and we're just waiting to see what folks at Des Moines do.
okay, and the positions that have resignations, I think there's like 13 teachers here.
Yes, some
Will
of them
that-
will be replaced, some will not. Some will be filled internally, so we'll
Okay.
do some shifting in staff as well.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, this ties into that, but the budget, just for an update, there's really no update, is there, from the legislature on allowable growth, supplemental state aid?
No, there really isn't any update. And that was really the reason that we've been pushing for that decision to come sooner rather than later, because some of these positions will not be refilled unless depending on the allowable growth that we get or the SSA. So, the hard part is you wait until June and then we may be able to advertise at that point in time, but we've missed some really valuable time. If there's any good part about this is that every district in Iowa is going to be sort of in the same boat. So I think a lot of other people are also going to be waiting to be hiring. So I think it'll be a pretty heavy hiring time in June, which is not, and maybe even into July once we know. So yeah.
Sue?
And that was one of my general questions, and then I wondered about summer coaches. Are we all hired pretty fully for summer coaching for the, softball, baseball seasons?
It's my understanding that most of those positions have been filled.
Okay,
I
and
just
then
signed one today.
okay, and then fall coaches are pretty much on
As they're
schedule.
posted, they get them out there and they start interviewing and filling positions, so yes.
Okay,
I don't think there may not be anything even open right now.
okay.
West High swim coach.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a
okay.
swim coach, and I think there was just some interviewing for a volleyball coach too. So.
Okay.
And then one other question, and it is ironic that Mr. Roberts is here, and I had noticed that he was on as resigning, and so I did have someone ask me if he was resigning because of this book controversy, which hence I have found, and if this is accurate, you are resigning to move to start a coffee shop, is that correct?
Do I have 4 or 3 minutes?
Yeah, I guess a nod would be appropriate, one way or the other.
That is not necessarily correct.
Oh, it is not. Okay, well,
I can confirm that Mr. Roberts did submit his resignation, and it does not indicate anything other than other opportunities.
Okay, thank you. So then item C, all those in favor of approving the personnel appointments and adjustments, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. And chair votes aye. Motion carries. So we'll move on to item D, which is on page 8. And the recommended motion is the Board of Education approve the bills due and payable and the bills paid between board meetings.
So moved.
Thanks, Andrea. And a second? Second. Angie, thank you. Any discussion?
And this isn't discussion, but just for the record, I'll abstain from voting on this because as an attorney, I represent a client who's paid by one of the bills.
Anything else? Then all those in favor of approving the bills due and payable between board meetings and please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And abstention?
Abstain.
Thank you. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Then we'll move on to item F, which is on page 17. Those of you that have been waiting patiently, we appreciate that. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept and acknowledge the Waterloo Exchange Club's donation in the amount of $2,500 for East High School's band program.
So moved.
And is there a second? Thank you. And with that, I'd like to ask Crystal Buzza to come up. Oh, and Joelle, I'm sorry.
We have a whole crew.
I see you, Joelle. I'm just, there you go.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I'm very excited to kind of explain just a little bit about the donation. But the Exchange Club of Waterloo, if you're not familiar with them, they have always done a lot to support the city of Waterloo, but also our schools. And they've done a lot for our music programs. And Dick Cole, who is with Exchange Club, I'm going to let him talk about what they have been doing and the program itself.
Hi, thank you very much. This might take more than 3 minutes, but it really is a big check.
That's all right.
So, we started this program about 7 years ago with Bunger. And the reason I did that was that my grandson was going to East High School and played in the band, and there was 35 members in the band. And I talked with Mr. Sitta, and we set up some jazz band stuff and gave them 2 years of donations. The band, not that it's all for Mr. Sitta, but the band does have almost 60 people now. It's almost double of what it was when we started. So it's just I found it's awfully important. Grandson Clint left East High and went to Iowa State and played in the band for 4 years. And his first statement was, I walked on the field there and it was like I had 250 friends. So the band segment of their education is quite important, and we're proud to donate monies to we've done several different schools now, almost around $30,000 altogether. And we're very happy to present this check tonight to the East High Band. And why don't you tell us what you're going to do with the money?
We're going to replace a lot of
Come
our
over
stage.
here.
I'm a teacher.
Come to the microphone.
There you go. I'm just kidding. We are going to replace a bunch of our stands that are wobbling and rusted out, but also too, the marching season is just, it's our most expensive time of year. And it seems like every year we come just right about at zero, and I think this is really going to help us stay comfortable, from year to year. So I'm humbled and very, very appreciative of this money, and it's so nice to know that this community has such great organizations that are out there for the kids, because that's what we're here for. So,
Now,
thank you very much.
we'd like to take a picture. Why don't you folks come over and stand with us?
Student and parent representatives here.
Right here. Okay, and you take your check off. Getting close.
Thank you,
Don't-
Mr.
don't-
Cole. Don't go yet. We have a couple questions for you.
I
Hang
have a
on.
question. I have a question for the student. What instrument do you play? What grade are you in? What's your favorite part of
Great. Yes. Yep. Yeah, thank you. There's several of us up here who are proud band moms, so I totally get it. Believe me, I totally get it. So, yeah. And, sorry, we'll keep it together. And Mr. Cole, thank you so much, because not only have you been generous with our music program, I know you've done coats. The Exchange Club has done many, many things for our students, and we are very, very thankful for that. Excellent. Well, we really appreciate it, so thank you very much. Thanks. Anything further? Then we'll happily vote to accept that donation from the Waterloo Exchange Club to East High School. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thanks again. And the last item off of the consent agenda this evening is item K on page 30. It is the selection of Medicaid contracted services, and I will get that motion on the table. It is the Board of Education accept the recommendation and approve the contract bid from Timberline Billing Services for 6% of claims as presented from July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2018. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. With that, we'll open it up for discussion. Mr. Coughlin, maybe, or I don't know who had the...
I actually pulled this. Is this something we competitively bid?
We do.
We do?
And we're required to, because it is a sizable contract for the district, but it is one of those issues that we take the privilege of recommending something we believe in rather than just by bottom dollar. And honestly, both providers that we've gotten bid from, our quality providers have been in it a long time, but the difference, and it's got in here that Larry Martin, the Director of Support Services for Special Ed, is recommending that we stay with Timberline, even though it is more expensive than the bid that came from MJ Care. One of the differences is the Timberline bid is 3 years, and MJ Care was 1 year, not knowing what the other years would bring. But that really wasn't the overall crux of why he went with Timberline, because I questioned him when it all came through. And I know this has been an ongoing process because about 7 years ago, we were only collecting a net of about $400,000 a year from Medicaid services, and we expect to go over $2 million this year. And a lot of that has been because of the partnership with Timberline that has been willing to grow with us. One of the big hurdles that we had to get through was having the AEA buy in to be able to do that for all the students that we had under their care. So this really is a recommendation for a continuing partnership. It's about an $8,000 to $10,000 difference per year at a percent, between 5% and 6%. But in the ability that we've had with this company to identify the services and to get the reimbursement, we believe it is well worth the difference in price to Timberline, because it allows us to access so much more in reimbursement because of their partnership.
That's what I was wondering as far as the fee that we had. Oops, sorry. I thought I hit it. The fee we had previously, what was the fee with Timberline? Because it's actually
It was
renewed.
6% in the
also.
last 3 years as
So
well.
it's staying the same, basically?
They are.
Okay.
That's all I needed.
And as I read it, it will stay at that 6% for those 3 years through
Yes.
2018?
Yes.
Okay.
And what they do, they get it's 6% of what they can get what we get reimbursed.
Whatever is
Is the
sent in for a reimbursement claim that qualifies, Timberline gets 6% of that, DHS gets 38% of that. So we get a little over half of everything that we turn in. So we're in the neighborhood of turning in about $4 million of services this year. We were close to that last year. Should be it's been improving every year.
Thank you, Michael. Anything further for Mr. Coughlin? Then all those in favor of approving the selection of the Medicaid contracted services, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That takes us through our consent agenda and moves us on to item L, which is on page 37. This is our student transportation contract extension. And the recommendation is that the Board of Education accept the recommendation provided from the Transportation Committee and approve the one-year contract extension through July 31st, 2016 for student transportation services to Durham Student Services.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Mike. And with that, I'm not sure who is going to speak. Maybe Jane? Sure. I'm looking out there.
Yeah,
Who's here
I
to
think we
talk
can
tonight?
have, yeah, we certainly have people here to answer questions from Durham, and Kathy Corbett is here and Ron is here. We have had a 3-year contract, and we are finishing out on the end of our 3-year contract. And so we had written in the original contract that there was a possibility of extending for another year. And so we've been working on that. We've been working with Durham. We have had, we've been extremely pleased with what they're doing. We've had, originally at the very, very beginning, we know that when you start up anything new, there's a few, things that you have to figure out. But since that, we had a few stumbling blocks, but actually since that time, it's been really quite smooth. And I've talked with Kathy Corbett several times and said that I believe that she is a big part of that. So as we were looking at the extension, we decided that we would pursue a 1-year extension. And the contract that you see in front of you is a result of the work that we've done.
Jane, I was wondering who serves on the Transportation Committee?
That we had multiple people. I don't even know if it's a formal thing, but Michael, you can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I used it as a term of the informal group of people that got together several times throughout this contract, that when we took the bids and that have been pretty active in this from the beginning, so.
The Facilities Committee has looked at that, which would be a subset of this group. And that's why you saw a little bit of a deer in the headlight, because I didn't know if that was a formal name, or I knew the group that had worked on this. And so Marty Metcalf was there, and I certainly was there, Michael was there, Cora Turner has been working on this as well.
Matt O'Brien.
So the people that are very aware of how that works.
Wow. Anything further? Lyle, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. First of all, is it the existing contract with only the modification from 7 to 8 years in section 17?
Say your question again.
Is the extension identical to the existing contract, but with a modification of bus life?
Ron, would you want to come up and talk about that a little bit? We have had we added the Versatrans piece so that we could look at the GPS and the Versatrans so that we would have equal access to that. So that was a modification as well as the price increase.
Right. The price increase included the same transportation price increase that's been over the last 3 years, which is a 3% increase. The modification of the bus age, max age fleet went from 7 years to 8 years. And then the inclusion of the Versatrans GPS and some of those other minor pieces of it that were in that negotiation.
And then just, it's very minor at this point, but is there an additional 3% then on the facility fee?
We had never negotiated an increase in the facility fee. It was the same fee that's built into the contract. We actually pay a rent for the facility usage.
But the existing contract, I mean, it's only $35,000 per year to lease the district's transportation center. The lease amount shall be increased 3% per contract year.
Then that would be included in that if it's still a continuation of the current contract.
Okay.
All we're looking to do is to extend the current contract as written
With
with
the same language.
minor modifications.
Okay. I may end up voting against this, I'm not sure. I'm referencing now July 8th, 2013, the Transportation System Improvement Policy. Mike, this may actually be your verbiage, I'm not sure. But, and there were three components to that: safety, service, and savings. And under the savings, it was realized the savings from the amount we're now spending, including normal inflation factors. So the intent, I believe, was to flatline out the total cost. Okay. And I think maybe this year we're on track to be the same total cost as last year, pretty close. I know that last year we were only 1,200 above the previous year, and I think the baseline was 4.46 million. I'm assuming this was passed in July of 13. I'm assuming it was the 2012, 2013 costs that we were referencing at the time. And Michael, if my numbers are correct, it was 4.46 million. That might have been an estimate at the time, but
I think that's really close. Yeah, I think you're really close.
so I guess the goal is to forever flatline. And due to really Kathy's leadership out there and the school district modifying the needs in terms of fewer buses, we were able to offset that 3% each year. But that's not going to happen forever. So I guess you mentioned at the previous meeting partnering. And to me, in the business world, partner means some very specific things. One is the service provider, Durham, and the service consumer, Waterloo Schools, shares their goals and collectively comes up with a plan to achieve both organizations' goals. I mean, even I've seen it even to the extent of totally open books in terms of a profit loss at the local level, and I don't know if that's going to be a part of it, but I haven't seen much interest in that, and maybe it's just because we haven't really asked for it in specific terms, but I'm real leery that with this 3% increase, even after allowing for the age of the buses, which is an additional increase, so it's really more than 3% this year if you add in that change, that our goal is not sustainable long term. And so that to me is what's lacking in with the budget money we're getting. We can't tolerate a 3% per year increase. So I guess I'm looking at Durham or whoever the next provider would be if we go out for bids rather than extend another year, that there's a plan there to sustain level funding, because we don't have the money to pay for more buses and hopefully even decrease total costs. So we need to
I think we've been very mindful and try to how we spend the money or what is billed. We constantly look for efficiencies within routing and reduce the number of routes run on a daily or on a yearly basis and fluctuate throughout the year. At this point in time right now, we're operating less routes than what's even listed in the contract. And that's because we find those savings. And in a good partnership, in a sense of what we do, we understand that there's an impact to our bottom line, and we understand that we give back that opportunity and try to find those savings as much as we possibly can. The savings that we do pass along. The the increase of 3%, or as you say, there's an additional increase by extending the bus life out, that's not necessarily a realistic expectation in the sense that when we purchase a bus, we depreciate it out over a period of time, and a 7-year-old bus has a lot of life left in it, and we would find a place for that bus to work anyway. And so we don't depreciate a bus or take a bus out just over a contract life. We look at it over a bus life term and offer that savings up front, so that those savings are actually realized in the initial pricing that we give out. And Dr. Linneman and I shared some of that information with you on the impact of some of those costs to capital and some of those risks with a one-term investment, one-year term investment. So there is quite a bit of work that's been done to find the most efficient and most economical pricing and processes allowed to the district. That's our goal as well, and I think that we have worked very hard with Marty and with a couple of the other people within the district to find the best and the most efficient process to do that. With the district growing, you're going to continually to see routes fluctuate. So as the district grows in enrollment, that's always going to be a situation we're faced.
Okay, just to underscore a point, the goal for this year should be no more total cost than last year.
Flat.
Huh?
Flat.
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 Mhm.
Flat total cost. And I guess I would challenge your organization to not assume there's a 3% increase that districts can afford, to look internally at your own organization and efficient so that you can offer something less than that, 2% or 1% or
I think that's fair, and I think we continue to do that all the time, yes.
whatever it is. But this proposal does not reflect that. It's a 3+ percentage, and that's the disappointment that I have at this point, that it doesn't align with our long-term goals. It might if we can find enough
Cost
routing
savings,
efficiencies and we work together well enough. And part of that's the districts in terms of bell times
Absolutely.
and all the rest of that. But if we're partnering, you need to make suggestions also that we see efficiencies if you would move this or if you would do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me what the partnership means.
And we've made those, and so I'm sorry that you haven't been included in that conversation, but those have been made throughout the year.
So.
And on the point of the 3 points that we had, the customer service aspect, I want to give a real praise to you guys, because I have not heard many complaints or issues with the bus. And actually, I was talking to a first grader the other day, and I said, what was your favorite part of the day? And she said, the bus ride. Now, I know other kids don't have that good of experience on the bus, but I'm just saying that with Kathy, and complaints that I have received regarding the bus is almost minimal, and I don't hear complaints about the busing near as I had previously. So kudos on that. Very good job on that.
And the local staff is
Great.
really good. So.
I know, Kathy, I have to call all the time about nobody's riding today or nobody, and the response to that is really good. So, thanks, Ron.
And I would just add too that we will continue to work on both sides. Even just today, we were working on the budget and we were looking at adjusting a bell time here or there, nothing significant, but even just the conversation we had today that it looks like we might be able to gain some efficiency next year in the in fiscal year 16. And we'll continue to do that. So it's not just, and we're looking at monitors and how we use that. And so we have some work ahead of us too. And I'm sure that you're going to work with us on that.
Absolutely.
And I know Kathy
We're along with the ride.
Yeah.
So we want to be there with you shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. Colfin will monitor the costs this year, and this is a 1-year additional extension, so we'll definitely have to keep that in mind as we move forward.
Sure.
Thanks. Anything further for Ron or Kathy?
I want to thank Lyle too for all of his
Yeah,
bus work.
absolutely.
That you spent a lot of time and energy and efficiency of the buses, and thank you for that.
It's a lot of detail.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anything else? All right. Then all those in favor of supporting the student transportation contract extension, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Reluctant, yes, I guess.
Reluctant, yes. Okay, still yes. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ron and Kathy, for being here tonight. The next item on our agenda is the renewal of the physical plant and equipment levy. It is Exhibit M on page 38. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the submission of the renewal of the physical plant and equipment levy as a ballot issue in the June 30th, 2015 special election, and the language to be printed on the ballot as presented. Can I get that on the table, please?
Also move.
Thanks, Mike. And a second? Second. Great, thanks, Sue. And with that, I'll turn it over to Michael Coughlin.
Okay, thank you. As you remember, just last board meeting, we approved the budget for the 15-16 school district. And if you remember looking at the school year, the 15-16 school year, that there are two parts of the PEPL funding. One of them is a 33-cent per $1,000 of assessed valuation levy that is by the board discretion on an annual basis. And the second part is what's called the VPPEL, the voted physical plant and equipment levy. And that is required to be voted on a 10-year cycle, simple majority. And the current levy is set to expire on June 30th of 2017. So 2 years from this June, but timing-wise, it's always good to get it in and put it before the public and have it renewed. And we currently are doing 67 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation. The limit of that is double, $1.34. The recommendation, as you have seen, is to leave it at the same tax levy amount of 67 cents. It is to leave it the same that it is all property tax. This levy does have the option to include income surtax, but the recommendation from the Finance Committee has been that we leave it as it currently is. So to approve this would be no change, no increase, funded under the same method that it has from the beginning. The last time this was voted on was at September 14th of 2004. So we did a little early in that cycle as well. So then this would start with the 17-18 school year and run out through 2027. So a 10-year period that the voters would approve. The PEPL levy involves many different things as far as how it's used. I just jotted down a few things here. HVAC systems, maintenance equipment, fencing, elevators, a wrestling mat, roofing repair and replacement, athletic tracks when we surface those, carpeting within the building, and computer hardware. So there's quite a variety of things that are funded by this. And I guess I failed to mention the dollar amount that comes in the amount that was approved for the 15-16 year. That is $1,897,731. So just a little bit below $2 million. And as it's based on the property valuation times 67 cents and whatever that generates. So in any special election, we have to have board approval and to forward the question to the county 46 days before the election, and the special election date that's coming up is June 30th. So we are a couple weeks ahead of the deadline, but if we waited for the next board meeting, it would be very tight to get it there. In just case there's any questions or revisions, I wanted to get across the agenda now so we could get it in for the June 30th special election date.
Michael, just to refresh my memory, does this take a supermajority, just a majority? What-
Simple majority.
Simple majority, great, okay,
Just bond issues only take the supermajority.
okay.
And I believe this will be we're in either the second or the third.
Third.
This would be the third.
This will be the third.
At least. I know we've had it 2 times before. Two
Yeah.
10-year cycles.
Because it did lapse.
Mhm.
And that turned out to be more of a penny wise and pound foolish decision, because we did suffer extraordinary building
It is a critical.
dilapidation
Yeah.
Yeah.
during that 10 or 15-year period when this money was not available for maintenance. So and anyway, it's I think good investment.
Yes.
And I was wondering, Michael and Jane and Tara, if potentially we could get a list and on the website or even in a flyer format to give out to the public for all these things that paid for, because people want to see what their money goes for, you know, and I think it would
Yeah.
be a good tool to have all the projects in the 9-year, just at least the last 9-year, 10-year before this one, that we could show all these projects that were completed.
There'll be publications that review all this and encourage people to vote. We can't come out and say, vote yes. We say, come out and vote, and here's what it's used for. So there will be publications and articles and website and so on, to make the people aware of what's happening.
And we will make sure too that people know what it's for, what it's done, and then that it's the same
Right,
thing.
it's
It's
not
not
an
an
increase.
increase, it's just a renewal, which is helpful for people to know, because they just need to know what it is and how we use it. So, great point.
And just, oh, I'm sorry.
Just make sure, Andrew, no tax increase.
He doesn't get to write the
And just to
headlines.
explain to the public on the, kind of the process, I'm on the finance committee, and we've talked about this a little bit. We talked at length about the amount of PEPAL. It's 67 cents, and I think that's half. You can ask for up to $1.34 for double of that. And then also, as Mr. Coughlin mentioned, it can be part property tax, or all property tax, or part property tax and part income surtax, and that's when you're filling out your state taxes. Usually the last question when you get to your state taxes, like if you're on TurboTax, it's one of the last questions, asks you what school district you're in. You scroll down the list and include that, and if your district has an income surtax, that's where you pay that tax, and it can go into PEPAL. And a number of school districts in Iowa, I think, use the income surtax. I think a majority do, but it seemed like around this region of the state, maybe less, did use that income surtax. And so we discussed that at length, and also the amount, and ultimately you'll see us here is just to leave everything as it is, so the property tax rate won't change. But just to kind of talk about the elephant in the room, is we've been talking a great deal about the bond issuance, whether there's need for a bond, and also with the high school reform task force that we've got. And also, I think Cedar Falls, since these discussions are going on, Cedar Falls has announced they're going for an actual bond vote. The same date, I think there are 4 dates a year when you can have these type of votes, so most school districts will have them generally around the same time. So it was just coincidence that they came, I guess, in the same time. But in Waterloo, what we've been talking about with our high school reform is that it's going to be a very deliberate, we hope to be as transparent of a process as possible in going through, figuring out what our options are, and deciding what kind of the Waterloo plan is, the Waterloo Schools plan, before we vote. So it's going to be a while before the bond vote comes out. This is not the bond vote, but we thought it was also important to do this because we didn't want to look at the bond vote as something that we could just add to kind of without anything holding us back. We wanted to keep, if we do go to a bond vote, we want to keep it as low as possible. And so trying to factor in what PEPAL could contribute to high school construction, and then also what the 1 cent sales tax could do. And that's bigger. That we get about $9 million a year, I think, from the 1 cent sales tax.
Yeah. Between 9 and 10.
Between $9 and $10 million. We've got some bonds. I think it was the Becker bonds are a little bit different, and there'll be some money coming in there. So in a way, it's trying to figure out everything that we've got, and so if we do look at a bond, we can rest assured knowing that that's the, I would say, the minimum amount of money that we need from the extra bond. And so part of it in coming in with that planning is it's tough to do that with PEPL to kind of extrapolate that out when we don't know if it's approved, because it's only approved through June 30th of 2017. Therefore, I think we brought this forward tonight.
Our buildings are in pretty good condition right now, and this is simply
Thank goodness
money
for the
to
ones that
maintain
stay.
them in good in good condition. It's almost that simple, isn't it?
Well, you just think through the number of buildings that we have, and, you know, there's still some older buildings, but even the new ones that we built, go back to when Cunningham in the early 2000s, if you own a house, you know in 10, 15 years it needs repair. So they have to, like, as Lyle stated very correctly, that this is to maintain them in the excellent shape that they are.
Yeah, and I think that's very important for the public to know what PEPL is for, since this is the third time. I remember when it was first introduced, and, you know, you had to sell it to the public. What is this? Well, it's to help maintain what we have and to improve that. And so it's very important to get this on the ballot. Get it going again.
And that's a great idea that you had, Sue, to list, have that available so that people know. Great. Anything further for Michael? All right. Seeing that, all those in favor then of approving the submission of the renewal of the physical plant and equipment levy, please signify by saying aye.
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 And all those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That concludes our action items this evening, and we'll move on. It's the Michael Coughlin Show this evening. We're going to move on to our monthly internal financials, which are Exhibit N on page 40.
This is the list of the monthly financial statements, and showing a little more detail in what we've done in the past. It's been a common report as you've seen the cash balances and how we've split it out to every month to see how that how trends are and when things come in and highs and lows and so on. And especially in a year where money is tight and we are looking at the budget process of what we are going to do in 15-16, but the foundation stone of that is how are we going to end up in 14-15 to figure out what's going to carry forward. And so we have used the same format to get into expenditures in the different funds, and this is something we've been using internally for the last couple of months. I just decided to give it to you rather than summary reports, to give you some detail. If something shows up as a question, from an accountant's point of view, there's never too much information. So on 41 and 42, you may disagree with me, but certainly able to express your opinion. 41, 42 is, and 43 is the cash balances report as you have seen in the past. 44, let me get turned the right direction, through 47 is the revenues by all the different sources, so you can look, particularly the biggest amount is in the general fund, and you can kind of see how money comes in sporadic trends depending on what kind of funding it is. So then also included with that detail of the activity management, the 1 cent, and PEPL and debt service, and the nutrition fund on page 47. So you can look at that and kind of see how and when and how much money comes in at a given point of the year. Then on 48 and 49 is a report that you've normally seen of the general fund that breaks down each function, regular instruction, special ed, and so on, and then the salaries and benefits that go. You're just not looking at because following, maybe I should have done that one first, of 50 and 51 and so on, is the object codes all grouped together, so it doesn't matter what function it's from. All salaries are there for all the different programs. And this is a breakdown by each funding area, by each function, which is, as I said, regular instruction, special ed, and so on. Salaries and benefits and purchase services all broken out. So you can kind of do a comparison of if we're spending up to this point 46 million in salaries, you can see on the next page on 50 and beyond how that's broken out for the whole budget, and then a comparison to 13-14 and the 14-15, 13-14 actual and the 14-15 budget, and then how it's extending through the year. And that also includes all the other funds that the revenues did, activity management, 1 cent, PEPL, and the debt service. And nutrition. Okay, so that, I was thinking I was running back into the general fund, that's why I was pausing. But the central print, which we had talked about a few months ago, that the print shop has been set aside into its own business entity, so we can clearly track whether that's making a profit or not. So it's a good challenge for the print shop crew, and if you noticed in here, we actually had a color print because we have invested in some significant color printing equipment, and we talked about that a few months ago. So Sean snuck in a color page, and probably because I sent it to him, but that is available for us to use. So those are the financial reports, a little bit different, more expanded than you've seen before. If you have any questions or you think of something later, please contact me.
Michael, I just noticed, and I didn't have a chance to look at this earlier, so I apologize, but on page 49 for the 13-14 year, the student transportation was 5.1, and on page 48, it's 4.0. There's probably a change in how some costs were accounted for.
Okay, you're comparing 5.1 on page 49, and that was what was the other number?
That's the June, that's the 13-14 actual, right?
Correct.
And the previous page, the budget for 14-15, if you look at that same total number for 2,700 student transportation, it's 4,023.
Oh, I see.
One of the differences in that number was, let me look at one thing. Because if you look at the budget for transportation, it was 3.6, but we spent 5.1. It's a combination of a couple of things that, as the state looks at transportation numbers, they change the requirements of where we have to report it. So some of those numbers at the beginning of the year were buried up in some of the other, but they really have tried to isolate that, kind of like we're doing central print. They want the same thing for transportation. So all and everything, they want it reported under that number, even though we may not have budgeted that way and included it in some of the other numbers.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought, and actually I'm happy they've made that change, because previously, if you compare transportation numbers at different districts, it doesn't mean anything, because
and one thing
they're
that's
all over the map.
one thing that's unique for us is, you know, to Durham, you were quoting some numbers of costs, but that doesn't include gas or the fuel.
Fuel, right.
Because we provide for that, so that comes under the 2,700 later.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Michael, I had, for the print shop, I was just kind of going through that, and obviously, the budget started, the line items, January, February, and March, and we were like at 100,000, and 112 was the total budget. So was that budget just to June 30th? I'm on 57. Last line. For the cost of producing copies, 0614.
Okay, so ask me your question again, please.
So for the budget, you're showing 112,000, and for year-to-date, which only includes January, February, and March, it's 105.
The January number includes all of the months of the year. We just didn't.
Okay.
We started this in March, or in January, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So we didn't go back and isolate the revenues for every month. We just moved it all over in January.
Okay, because I was going to say we'll probably be way off target if, that, but it only goes till June 30th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, got it. And then secondly, are we going to anticipate potentially needing that gap loan with salaries due and property taxes and?
No.
No, okay, good,
And we'll talk about that more tomorrow.
okay, thank you.
I like the colors. Those are helpful to me. I'm a visual learner. I appreciate the colors. Thanks. Does anybody else have anything for Michael? Thanks, Michael. Then we can move on. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Just a couple things. First of all, this could be as much for the board as it would be for any of the viewers that might be interested in this piece. Earlier tonight we had a visitor talk about the Pinnacle Prairie property and the boundary lines that are the discussion that's going to happen tomorrow. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. We're not taking any action tonight, so anything that I say right now is really just in the spirit of clarification. So there, the land known as Pinnacle Prairie also contains a little subsection called Pinnacle Ridge. And that is a land development that has 45 units. And so of those 45 units, interestingly enough, in that subdivision, the school boundary line goes right through it. And so houses are either clearly on the Waterloo Schools property or the Cedar Falls property line or within the boundaries, but there are 3 properties that are just straddling the line. And so, and once the information is posted, you can take a look at that. It's lots 11, 26, and 38. And so Mike Young and I attended a meeting with the Cedar Falls City Hall, and we just looked at the properties that are right on the line. And so there's actually a protocol. I've learned a lot in this. There's a protocol to follow on how do you determine when a property is on, half on one side and half on the other. What do you do? And so we looked at the protocol, and we actually contacted the Iowa Association of School Boards for a review and just make sure that they were double checking. And so once we did that, it was really clear that 2 of the properties really did lie within the Cedar Falls, that they would go to the Cedar Falls. They were more in line with the Cedar Falls, and it has to do with even the shortest side of the property. One of them was a corner lot, and so it's very interesting, and for anybody who's really interested in trivia, if you look at that, the protocol, one of the last ones is it even goes to where the master bedroom is, and then it even goes to where if that doesn't determine it, then it even goes to where the master's head is. So it actually, I read it too, Angela. I saw that look and I read it and I thought, is this a joke? But it really is not a joke. There is a protocol for determining this. And so we went through that and looked, and it was very clear that 2 of the properties actually would go to Cedar Falls because for a variety of reasons, but one of them is that the majority of the lot was in Cedar Falls. And then there was one lot, lot 11, which definitely would be in the Waterloo line. And so just to make it easier for any property owners that would buy these properties that are actually undeveloped at this point in time, to make it easier for them to know where their children might attend school, and because there wouldn't be a possibility of 2 children in the same household, one in a bedroom on the Cedar Falls line and one in a bedroom on the Waterloo line, where we wouldn't, they just wouldn't know. So we're trying to make it easier for everybody. So we just actually got together and looked at the law, and we're actually replacing the lines around the property so that each property fully lies within either Cedar Falls or Waterloo. So again, we're really only dealing with the 3 properties that the line goes pretty much right through. The other thing that is just a slight change is that there are a couple properties that are in the Waterloo school boundary that the line actually is just right on the edge, but it does not coincide exactly with the property line. So we all agreed that it would just be easier if the property line and the school boundary line were the same. And so they would see a little line, I think on one it might be 10 feet or something. It's just adjusting that. So it doesn't change anything about where the property is clearly in the Waterloo side, but we would just adjust it. Cedar Falls asked us to just adjust it, just so you don't actually have part of your property in one. And so that's really what people will see. And tomorrow, so the last part on that is we went to the administrative code, and it's very interesting. First of all, school districts have to pass a resolution to clarify and clearly lay out how the boundary line would be changed. That's the first requirement. The second one is that it must be done at a special board meeting, not at a regular board meeting. And if that were not a requirement, we would probably ask you to take action on that tonight because you're here. But the law is very clear. And I think if you go back, I think the intent of that law is really so that nothing would be ever tucked in a consent agenda. It's meant to be very transparent, very open, and a special board meeting certainly would make that happen. The third thing is that the resolutions, once they're approved by the boards, in this case Cedar Falls and Waterloo boards, would need to be filed with the county auditor and the local AEA, and then there are some waiting periods. The local AEA actually has the right to object to this property change. I visited with them. There's no reason to believe they are very aware of what we're doing and are that makes sense to them. But they would have 30 days to object to the county auditor if they should want to do that. And then the public actually has 6 months to contest the changing of any school boundary. So once people look at that, and I don't think it's controversial because it really is a property where the line goes right through it. But still, the law is the law, and so the public would have 6 months to contest that. So that's what we're taking action on tomorrow. I think that clearly lays out what that is. And if anybody has any questions between now and 1 o'clock when that special board meeting is, you certainly can contact me or contact the district, or any of the school board members would be probably able to answer those questions as well.
But the property spoken of earlier tonight is not in play.
It is not in play, and so that's, I think that when something comes out and you have to discuss it, we put it out, but then the board meeting doesn't happen until a little bit later. It causes people to question, but you're right, that the property that was referenced tonight actually is not even in discussion, so it will clearly lie within the Waterloo line. So. Second thing is that I just want to openly and publicly thank the Waterloo Schools Foundation. Tomorrow morning we have just a really great event at 7 o'clock. The Waterloo Schools Foundation is having their Sparking Excellence breakfast, and it's really a great event, and probably the highlight is that they will be releasing the names of the innovative grant winners, and so we're just waiting. I have actually seen the list. I'm excited about that, but it's really going to be great, so looking forward to that. And then just finally, I appreciate the comments about the book tonight. What I would say is that one thing I've learned in my actually in my 20 years in administration, and certainly within my first year as a superintendent, that you cannot absolutely cannot please everyone, and you can please some, you can't please everybody. So I would say that, and I know that Mr. Roberts is very aware of what our next steps are, but I would want to offer that to anybody else. If you had wanted to follow up with me, I would certainly be willing and would welcome any conversation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I started with Lyle last time, so I'm going to go this direction. Ooh. Okay, Lyle, I'm going to let you go.
Sorry.
I need to just write it down. I need to have like an abacus up here. Exactly. There you go. The possession arrow.
No parting comments tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I have something tonight.
That's great. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, last Tuesday I went to Pointer Elementary School's first Leader in Me showcase and met some outstanding students who were confident, and they were self-assured, and they were so excited about what the various things they were doing in their school. They had a recycling club, and they've got an art club, and then they've got kids who make announcements in the morning, and they're just so excited. They said they loved to be in school.
It's neat. I was there too. Yeah. All right, you two want to duel it out?
The only comments I have is that we have amazing teachers as we're going into Teacher Appreciation Week. I want to say that I sit here today from a single parent home where my mom did not encourage me in school, but I got lots of encouragement. If mom is listening, I mean, not that you didn't, but you didn't help me. Anyway, I got a lot of encouragement from several teachers that I can remember by name all the way back to kindergarten, first grade, that made a huge difference in my life. And even when I got 20 under 40, I think I mentioned 4 of my teachers as role models who put me here where I am. So and as I work with different kids, I don't have any kids of my own. They always seem to somehow live in my house. Teachers have done amazing things to inspire them to be great, and they have always risen to that challenge. So I just want to say that I really appreciate the teachers we have in the Waterloo school system.
Thanks, Angie.
Well, I have a couple comments and then a question or two, and Mike had to leave for a work commitment, so that is where Mr. Young went. But first of all, I wondered, did we get an update on the West High Culinary Arts, the Pro Start, how they finished?
I do not, I don't have
Okay.
that yet.
I thought they went next week.
And here it said April 21st.
I know they're returned, and I think they're waiting for the results.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so just once we get results, we'd love to know how they did. Their fundraiser they had at Rosewood, or it wasn't Rosewood, it's
Yeah.
I can't.
The old Ramada, where yeah.
Anyway, the fundraiser they had was very effective, and I think people got to see their skills, and that was really cool. Secondly, I wondered, Logan, what's the status of Logan? When we were going through here and I saw asbestos, I wondered what's going on with Logan?
The asbestos has been removed. We've had the sale, and the building's just waiting. It is on a proposed calendar list of the PEPL money that we have put together, and we'll show the Finance Committee that tomorrow. Marty and I have worked on that just to present something to Dr. Lindeman and to you. But Logan is on the short list of getting addressed.
Great.
Good.
Because I drove by the Irving property, and I mean, it was an awesome
looks
job.
so
You
nice.
can't even tell if school was there. I mean, it just looks lovely. So whoever was totally responsible for that, good job. And then I wanted to thank the WEA for working with us with staffing concerns, and it's good to have cooperative efforts, and I thank them for those efforts. And then I lastly wanted to encourage students. I know my son is on countdown, and seniors are probably on major countdown.
They are.
But to work hard on your testing, you have a month left of this year, so do your best for your month of school and finish strong. That's it.
Thanks, Sue. And I have no report this evening because I am going to try to get to Hoover for my own child's chorus concert tonight. But the next regular meeting we will be having is May 11th. We do have a special board meeting at 1 o'clock tomorrow. So we will see everybody back here in 2 weeks. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Meeting adjourned.